Hello, Typology Tribe. Ian Cron here, host of this show on which we explore the mystery of the human personality through the lens of the Enneagram. I am so excited for today's show. And of course, every week I'm excited about my co-host and dear friend, producer, and just generally good human being, Anthony Skinner, being on with us. Anthony, good morning.
Hey, Ian, how are you doing today?
Good. I feel like two CNN talking heads.
Definitely, I know. This is an interesting season that we find ourselves in.
It is. And yet, regardless of the season, we have an amazing guest on today that I have been excited about having on forever. Why don't you introduce our guest this morning?
Yes, we've been talking about this for quite a while. Ian, you and I have. And today we get to have my eldest child, my firstborn son, Justice Skinner.
Hey, hello, Ian.
Justice, good morning. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right. It's early. That's okay.
That's true. We're doing our show at 8 a.m. this morning, which is not a perfect hour for any of our ages, frankly, not just for yours. One of the reasons I'm so excited about having you on is you are the youngest guest we have ever had on our show.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty awesome. I'll take it.
That is amazing. Yeah, I'm excited.
No pressure, but you are representing your entire demographic. I want you to tell folks about yourself, about your type, and maybe just a little bit about how you came to identify as your particular type.
That's a great question. So I'm a 6 on the Enneagram, the loyalist. And I think I was about 2-3 years that probably kind of identified as it when you're...
About 3 years ago, we took the test.
Yeah.
And Justice was clearly identified with the personality traits of the 6. A couple of my other children, it was a little more of a question mark. And I know it was young to even be doing a test like this. So we weren't pushing it on them. We were just exploring it as a family. But he clearly identified. I mean, it was just no question for him. And, and he identified himself as the 6. That wasn't mom and dad, pushing the number on him.
No, there was no doubt. Like when I was, I definitely have always had a lot of fear, was just anxious in a lot of situations, and definitely kind of took that role, just like a family, whatever, with friends. So definitely when I got the 6, it was like, oh yeah, this is definitely me. Like I'll take that. Like there was no I think I remember I listened to an episode before, and you were like, I'm a 4, but I'm okay with being something else or whatever. And I think even 6s were on or whatever when you said that, and they were like, oh no, I'm definitely a 6. There's nothing else. I am a 6. That's what I identify with or whatever. So yeah.
What's so interesting about 6s is they're usually the last type during a workshop to figure out their number. And they're the only type usually that waits until they've heard every single number to determine theirs. In other words, they won't stop at 5 and go, oh, I'm definitely a 5. They'll be like, no, I want to hear every number before I identify. And I think that's partly because 6s have a lot of self-doubt and self-questions. And it's because 6s want to have all the information before they make a decision. And so when someone comes up to me after a workshop and says, what number on the Enneagram has the most trouble figuring out their number on the Enneagram? And I always go, 6, 6, 6.
I will say, as a parent, I mean, that's something that has really helped me, knowing that Justice self-identified as a 6. Because, for instance, right now he's been going through the whole process of looking at schools and universities, and he has crossed every T, dotted every I, dusted every fingerprint, read every book, and whereas I might have felt the pressure to for him to make a decision, I've known he needed to go through this process because he was a 6. It really helped me go, okay, no, he needs to go through the full experience. So that's just one small area, which is, I mean, it's not really small, but I mean, one little example of how it's really helped us even relationally, and how it's helped us to parent him through a major process, finding where you want to go to school. So really helpful knowing that he's a 6 there.
No, and like I definitely like I seriously like called everything that I could, especially because I want to go into filmmaking or film production. That's a very kind of weird thing. Like, it's just some colleges have like where you're finally touching a camera like junior year, which is ridiculous. So for 2 years you're doing film studies, and then other it's like they'll do that freshman year. But like it was just, I called like every person I could. Like I talked to friends of every university or whatever, like trying to get information. And so I finally got that. And then I was like, oh, I know everything. Like, oh, I guess it's a decision now, isn't it? I was like, crap. I don't know what to do now. Like, oh.
Well, again, this is very much a feature of the 6. You're talking about going around to lots and lots of people, asking them for their input, because 6s typically have trouble with the what we call self-trust, the ability to make their own decision. So they go out and they start polling people, because they tend to see other people as having more, or should I say, a better internal compass. But the problem is it ends up confusing the 6 even more, because now they've got a chorus of voices, all with different perspectives in their head. I don't know if that was your experience, but it's typical of the 6s.
Yeah, that's funny. Now it's adding voices to the one in your head. You're like, dang it. Like now I'm less from square one. But I think for me, it was more of, I kind of read your chapter recently in your book about 6s, and you were talking a lot about authority figures. And I was kind of thinking, it's like, I remember in the past, definitely, I would think I almost fell into a phobic 6, where I was like, the authority figure, my teacher, like that was it. I was following that person. But like, I think I moved away from that fear a whole lot. But definitely when I'm talking to someone in the university or whatever, like there's always a thing where it's like, I can't completely trust you. Like you're still trying to get something from me or whatever. Like, and then I feel like that isn't super condemning. Like there's no other way that you can do that. Like you're even if they're trying to be honest, like they still want you to come to the university or whatever. So that's why I like to trust or go to people who are attending there, because they'd be way more to just be kind of an honest thing. Like, yeah, the food sucks here. Or is like, yeah, like the tripods are not great or whatever, and getting more honest opinion in my head, that makes me feel better about it.
A lot of times 6s naturally believe that authority figures in particular have hidden agendas, right? And so they don't trust the authority figure. And also you said something very important. You actually identify as a counterphobic 6, okay? The truth of the matter is that there's no such thing as a pure counterphobic 6. And you just actually revealed it, right? Which is when you're talking to admissions department people, you tend to lean into counterphobic 6. This authority figure, I don't know. Of course, they want me to come here. They're kind of smooging me a little bit, blah, blah, blah. I need to go talk to some people on the ground and get some more information from people who may have a more objective. So then you kind of go more toward phobic 6. And this is something I want to remind people that really 6s live on a continuum between phobic and counterphobic 6. And depending on the situation, they're kind of moving around between the two. I would say that if you're a counterphobic 6, what that means is you tend to spend more time over here than you do over here, but it doesn't mean that you don't ever go over here and lean into the phobic side. And I think that's so important for people to understand.
That's a great point.
That's part of the ambivalence that's natural to the 6, like, oh, I'm not sure how I should be. Now, have you made a decision yet about?
Well, I mean, here's even more. Here's even more insight. Like I was just kind of talking about it with my parents, and like, so I kind of decided Lipscomb, but it was like, I was like, I'm gonna say I'm going to Lipscomb, and then I'm gonna like give it a half a week or like just let it kind of see how my body like kind of takes it or whatever, because this will give you even more insight. Like, okay, with being 6, not even knowing it, but now definitely becoming aware of it. Like so much of kind of what your day is run by that fear, or that fear is present or whatever. And so it's like, okay, now I need to deal, like, where is this fear coming from? What do I need to work from? What is this fear telling me or whatever? But you get so used to that when there's an absence of fear, you're like, what do I do? Like, where is the next step in or whatever? Like, well, how do I get through this maze now? And there's been like this absence of feelings now with kind of colleges. Like, I'm not feeling like towards one totally or whatever. And so I'm just like, I don't know. Like, it feels like you're kind of had a tour, like a guide or whatever through a maze, and that guy just left you. And you're kind of like, just kind of stuck there. So I think
so you're going to have to pull a trigger.
True.
Good.
Hopefully not. No, I'm kidding.
How are you going to make the ultimate decision where it's like, okay, I'm going to make my decision to go here?
I don't totally know. I kind of said today would be the day. So however that ends up, I mean, I don't know. I've put a lot of thought into it. And of course, this is something where you can be overthinking. Like, I say all of this, but at the same time, I've spent about 30 minutes, like 3 times in the last week, just really thinking, just being aware about college and just like seeing how I feel about it. And I definitely think Lipscomb has this kind of potential, like where I would just be able to be like me and just really accept myself there and really push me. So that I honestly say that, and then also,
yeah. Well, that's okay. I guess maybe if I could, I would say, and I think 6s need to hear this. You can make a decision and change your mind down the road. You could go for a semester, and if you're like, didn't work, I didn't make the decision I made turned out not to be the right one. Well, so what? What's to be afraid of? You could just decide, I'm not going to go to Lipscomb. I'm going to transfer somewhere else, and that'll be okay too.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't. I don't think we've really processed much since you felt like you kind of landed, and so that's probably where some of your anxiety is right now, which is good. It's good that you're sharing this process. I appreciate you being vulnerable right now, but I think just the fact that you kind of landed, and then we haven't like sat down and processed some of what we're processing out loud now. Is why you're still sort of hovering too, and it'll help.
Well, and then also the other thing is like, it's gonna be there. Like, it's not gonna leave at the same time. So it's like a lot of that where I'm like trying to kind of eliminate that or whatever. It's like, oh, that's right. Like, this isn't, I'm going to feel this way. Like, even if I'm 100% sure, like, you're gonna have doubt regardless. So it's that.
Hey everybody, one of the lessons I've learned over the years is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute counseling session. And this is why some people can go to couples therapy or personal counseling for a long time and never really get anywhere. This is why I'm such a believer of intensive counseling and my friends at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, created by my longtime friend Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change and happiness half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Now listen, if you can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience breakthrough, you need to get in touch with my friend Michael and his extraordinary team of counselors at Restoring the Soul. If you're looking to get out of the rut you're in, but can't wait months or years, call Restoring the Soul today for a free consultation with Michael's staff. Call 303-932-9777 and learn how their intensive counseling process can help you. As a special bonus, just for Typology listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/typology to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships.
One of the things that I would say is a big, big theme for justice and that we have discussed quite a bit is this idea of don't feel the pressure of eliminating the fear. You know, this thought that one day I'm going to be absent of fear. Everyone deals with fear. 6s in particular, it's amplified and deal with maybe more fears. But the idea of not trying to eliminate, but to acknowledge the fear and to understand what the fear is indicating. You know, the fear is telling you something about your heart and what you need, and learning to move into the gift of, you know, not toxic fear, but the gift of fear that gives you the gift of preparedness. And that's one of the things that I love celebrating about Justice is he's the most prepared in our whole family, right? And so just learning to, even we've talked about letting the fear blow through you, not trying to erase it or fight it or figure your way out of it, but let it blow through you, let it inform you of a need that you have, and then you can act upon that need. Now, if you find that it's toxic and it's the kind of that just sort of unidentifiable anxiety that you talk about, Ian, that's obviously, you know, something you want to address and not like live under. But I like that you, even as we're processing out loud, you circled around to, you know what, the fear is not going to go away. I need to make the decision anyway. Even after I make the decision, I will still have experienced that fear.
Yeah, this is so important. And I want to tell people who are listening right now, a lot of times, and this is really sad, a lot of times when you have a young person, 17, 18 years old, and you're 35, you might be thinking right now, oh, this is somebody who, yeah, may have some interesting things to say, but because they're so young, it probably doesn't apply to me. Okay. I hope by now you've already realized that there is not a thing that Justice has said yet that I've heard that is completely unique to someone his age. Okay. If you're 35, he's describing your life. So please don't check out, because he's actually, because he's so young in his type, you're getting a lot of more accurate information than you would give me, because he doesn't have all the stories, ongoing mental stories and psychological experiences and overlays that you have that make the characteristics of your type not as clear. So actually, he's giving you more clarity than most 6s would give me at 30. So you don't check out right now, okay? Just because Justice is younger, okay? He actually has more to teach you than you can imagine in the next, 20 minutes or so. Justice, I want to go back to something that you said a minute ago that I thought was really helpful. It was more of an observation. In your family, I know you have a 1, you have a 6, mom's a 4, dad's a 4. Who else do we have?
7.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
7. Okay. So we have, multiple types going around. You're the only one, I think, if I can remember this right, that's in the thinking triad. Is that right?
Oh, the 7.
Oh, you have 2 7s.
Well, no, 7 and a 6.
7, 6, 1, 4, 4.
Ew.
So here's what's so interesting. This is where having a family that's aware of the Enneagram, you're modeling how great in a family system knowing the Enneagram is. Anthony, you just described how knowing Justice was a 6 helped you know how to better parent him. He's not as much as of a mystery to you, right? You have insight that you would not otherwise have. And Justice, I'm assuming by the way, you have information about yourself at your age that puts you so far ahead of the vast majority of your peers. Because, for example, knowing, and I hope every 6 hears this, you can leverage anxiety into a gift.
Yes.
Where it's like, I know I'm always going to be anxious. I'm not going to let anxiety rule my life. I'm going to integrate it into my decision-making process, my way of moving through the world, and not see it as a weakness, but actually use it to help me make decisions and do things in life.
So yes, like one of the things that I would like to add to that, like we were talking about this a little bit ago, but Justice transferred from private school to public school his sophomore year. And it was a tough transition for all of our kids. We appreciated that private education, but we also wanted to kind of broaden their experience. And it was a tough transition. And I remember Justice just not connecting, having trouble connecting. And I remember pulling up because he asked me if I would take him to the football game on Friday to drop him off at the football game. So I'm pulling up and I said, who are you meeting here? You know, as I pulled up, and he's like, no one. And he gets out of the car and he's walking into the stadium that's already, the game's going, you know, it's like it's totally rocking, the stadium's rocking. And I'm like, he's walking in alone. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe it. It's like, you know how the challenge of a child going in alone, a teen going in alone, but then also, you know, how other people can perceive you if you're alone.
Oh yeah.
And so I was like, do you want me to go with you? You want to hang together? He's like, no. And I remember driving away going, how is he doing this? And it really helped me as I understood that he did lean more toward counterphobic 6, that he did have a fear, but he was really pressing into that fear and walking into that fear. And I've seen him continue to do this. This is my encouragement to 6s, because it is such a gift to help you prepare for what you need to be prepared for. I just kept seeing him press into the fear and to let it serve him, you know, to take the gift that it was giving him. And he just, he's in his senior year now, and he just got Mr. Centennial High School, Mr. CHS. So it's like, you could see him move from outsider to totally insider. And I think he maximized his 6ness to help him. He leveraged his 6ness, like you're saying, to get there. And I think that's all 6s can apply that to their life.
So Justice, I know you're a great musician, a great performer. Tell me, how do you think there's a connection between your 6ness and becoming Mr. CHS?
I think it's just me. I don't know. I think it was all of me. I think it was my destiny in a way. I mean, this is encouragement for all 6s. I mean, I was completely terrified the entire time going through the process. And like, I was told by a friend, hey, you should do this or whatever. I was like, wait, heck yeah, I should, you know, like do singing, you know, do a little dance on stage. That would be awesome. But I was so scared. I was scared the entire way or whatever. But just knowing that, like, I mean, that's temporary. But that also, you know, that's not going to be forever. And that, like, I'm enjoying this. And I think a huge thing with 6s is that just like short-term memory loss, or like not exactly that, but like, because anxiety and fear can be so present in your daily life, just in everything. I wanted to even talk about something like just kind of the fear of even the moment or whatever, that you can forget that 3 days ago or whatever, when you were afraid about like what socks to put into like the laundry or whatever, like, was it gonna like lead into the clothes? I obviously don't know how to do laundry. Like, you forget that you were super afraid of that moment, and then now you're not even thinking about that. And so like back there where you were like wanting to go up to that person and introduce yourself, you're not thinking about that where it turned out great or it turned out well, or even if it didn't, you don't even remember about it. So that's like a big thing, like kind of just knowing that I was like, okay, like I'm really afraid right now, but like this is going to be fun and this is going to be a really great memory to look back on.
That's so good. It's true that sixes have sort of what we call success amnesia, which is why we tend to recommend that sixes keep a journal of all the times that they experienced tremendous fear, but chose not to have it run their lives. And it worked out okay, so that when they're faced with a new decision, they can go back to the journal and say, I've been here before and it worked out okay.
Yeah.
You know?
And if I can say, two things kind of come to mind with this, and I'm not sure if this is every six, so I'm just kind of speak about me. But like when you get set with that tremendous fear again, and you're like, oh great, 10th time today. Like, and then you kind of remember that thing or whatever, or like that success in the past. Two things are going to happen. Like one, something will click in your body or whatever, like, and you will feel like kind of a different feeling, and that fear will kind of go away a little bit, and you'll be washed over with the sensation of like, wait a second, I can do this, like, you know, like this is good. Or the second thing is that it won't go away. Like you'll still be really anxious or whatever. And that's where you just kind of learn to develop that skill or whatever, where you're like, okay, this is just a feeling. Like I'm thinking like, yes, this fear is still here. Doesn't make what's on this page any less true. It just means like I can still do this, and I've done this in the past, and I'll be fine or whatever. So it's like,
all right, so
I'm proud right now.
I mean, Anthony's tearing up, because again, it's so interesting how when you speak to a person who's younger and knows their type, how much more clarity and wisdom they often have than somebody who's 40. Because you see, the 40-year-old has so much more luggage they're carrying that can confuse their ability to identify their type and to be able to talk about it with clarity, right? And so how do you think knowing the Enneagram has affected family relationships in general, not just with dad, but just in general?
I would say with like a family, and I think I'm just going to tie this in a little bit more as a six, like kind of just my experience with the family, is that, like, how to exactly say this? Being kind of like a devil's advocate, like sixes, you have a lot of fear. And so sometimes you can be, like there can be a situation where you're out with the family, or you're on a vacation of some sorts, or just kind of in general where you're not totally sure about the situation at hand. So like there might be like, you don't know when we're going to get there, or if we have everything, or does that person need to be checked on or something. And you kind of know that you're afraid of what you saying this might do to affect someone or kind of affect the other family. You know, it might not be like, they might not be super accepting of it or whatever. And so a lot of times what a six can kind of do is that they ask a question, kind of prompting that what they're really afraid of, because again, like you said, that kind of self-doubt, or they don't trust themselves to actually identify the situation, and don't trust themselves that they know what actually is wrong. Like there might be something wrong, or it might be something needs to check out. So they'll ask a question that kind of prompts the other person to look into it, but that thing, your fear is still being communicated there, and that you can trace it back to that. And what sucks is that can, that person, now that person feels like the responsibility is kind of been shoved up them. So that can also be kind of a negative counterattack. So being aware of that, especially in family situations, and then being able, you know what, this is my need, this is what I'm afraid of right now. Like I'm going to speak to this, can be hugely helpful.
Hey, Typology Tribe, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for helping us bring you what I hope is great content every week. Now, you all know I'm a big proponent of counseling. So whether you feel like something is interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving certain goals, counseling is a great tool to help identify what those blocks are and then work through them. Yet, finding a therapist can sometimes feel intimidating, but not with BetterHelp. BetterHelp offers online counseling at your own time and your own pace. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus text and chat with your therapist when it's convenient for you. These are licensed professional counselors who specialize in things like depression, anxiety, stress, relationships, LGBT matters, trauma, and grief. BetterHelp has counselors available worldwide and have over 3,000 U.S. licensed therapists across all 50 states. And get this, if you're not satisfied with your counselor for any reason, you can request a new one at any time at no additional cost. Best of all, it's a truly affordable option. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/typologypodcast. Join over 800,000 people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/typologypodcast, TYPOLOGYPODCAST.
So we're coming up toward the end of this conversation. And Justice, what I want to ask you is, how do you think knowing your Enneagram type has given you some kind of an advantage over your peers?
I would say yes. I don't want to say advantage because that sounds like it's like a competition or something. But
An edge. It's given you a tool that if they had, their lives would be better lived.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, like just what I said before, like I thoroughly am able to just kind of process my emotions and like difficulties. Just like I spend more time on it. And I think a big thing with Enneagram or kind of any kind of thing with your own personality, whatever. And I think I just kind of got lucky where I wanted to pour into it so early, is that like once you start to make breakthroughs, like it really does, you're like, okay, this is good. Like, wait a second, that was a lot of painful, but like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like this is going to actually help me. And I think that's a lot where just like knowing what my goals are to be, knowing that if I'm super afraid that I can still pursue that, what I want, knowing that I might be really angry right now, but either I can like, that's fine that I'm angry. Like angry is not negative. Like it just means that I care about something, and either to push into that or like I can take time for that to like kind of wash off. And then especially like I'm just able to talk about it. Like I'm just able to, I notice whenever I'm talking to people and just able to have empathy, that's a huge one. Especially because 6s go to 9s when they are in growth. Like I'm able to just have so much care, because I know for me, like, because I'm dealing with all these emotions just kind of all the time, that I'm just like, this is hard. Like this is really hard to just do this stuff and to know, and I know what you're thinking and I know what you're feeling, and I'm here and I'm sorry. I think this sucks, but empathy and compassion, definitely.
Yeah. And of course, that is a wonderful trait of 9s. 6s do go to the high side of 9 when they're in a good space, and where they become very supportive. That's their nature. They have empathy. They're able to see multiple points of view without making any judgments as to whether those places that people are at are good or bad. They are able to also encourage people with this belief that, hey, relax, everything's going to be okay, and that's a great gift that 9s have when they're in a great space. I mean, 6s have when they're in a great space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that I was going to say for 6 is that also for 6s out there, like, watch when you're able to, when you talk to someone else and you're like, this definitely, I think that devil advocates can be such a tool when someone's they're saying their worries and you're able to identify, wait a second, that's not totally true. Like, you gave it your 100% right there. And like, okay, if you failed, like, that's fine. Like, you still pushed for it, because I find for me, it's way easier for me to look at someone else and be like, you're doing great. And then if I was looking at myself there, it was like, oh, I didn't give my 100%, or like I failed right there, or
right.
I woke up late for that, or whatever, and be like, no, have compassion for yourself, recognize that you can have compassion for others.
So, Justice, we've reached the time when, unfortunately, we have to wrap up the show, even though I feel like you have so much more wisdom to bring to 6s of all freaking ages. In fact, I have interviewed a ton of 6s who have had less clarity, have not applied the Enneagram to their lives with as much thoughtfulness and depth as you have. What piece of advice, and I think you've already given some, so if you could think of a fresh one, what piece of advice would you have to 6s of any age? Just one piece.
I think one piece of advice, I think they go hand in hand. And I think this is something that I was thinking about, is that I think where 6s, they tie themselves so much to fear. And like fear, like you feel like you're almost driven by fear a lot, like especially schedule making or whatever. Like, I mean, it can almost be in a way, it's like, okay, what am I afraid I'm not going to do or I'm not going to be? And I'm going to schedule it out so that I am those things. But a big thing I think is to recognize is that especially when you're becoming aware of yourself, being a 6, you can be very hard on yourself for, oh my gosh, I let fear get the better of me or whatever. That can be a hard thing to go through, but that there was 100 of other motives or other feelings that were going into that decision that are even going on right now. And usually actually fear was not the strongest emotion, or is not the primary emotion there. But fear takes so much precedence within a 6 that when it is noticed, that's when your kind of defense mechanisms or everything kind of gets back up. It's like, oh shoot, it's here now. Like, let's prepare for this or whatever. So to know that what you're doing or whatever, being like, great, I lost a fear against it. It's like, now there was so much other stuff going on while doing that. That's a lie that you tell yourself.
Great. So I love that, your ability to say, a couple of things I think you're saying. Number one is, just because I'm having this thought, right? And fear is really more of a thinking thing than a feeling thing. You think the fear first, and then it turns into an experience in the body. Yeah. Rapid heart rate, adrenaline, all that stuff. What's interesting about shame and fear, okay, that when I learned it was a real revelation for me. What people fear about fear is not actually the topic that's causing the fear. It's the experience of fear in their body. What they're really afraid of is the racing heart, the confusion. So it's actually the physical experience of fear that's more frightening than the thing that's causing the fear cognitively. 100%. Shame is the same way. How much do you like the feeling of shame? It's like one of the worst feelings in the world. Mm-hmm. But it's actually what people fear more than actually the source of the shame is the actual physical experience of shame. And that's what they're trying to avoid when people are trying to get out of shame. Same thing with fear. It's like just the physical experience is so painful or intimidating and frightening. It's like, if you remember that, it really helps because feelings are always changing. You can say to yourself, okay, I feel ashamed right now, I hate this feeling in my body,
Yeah.
but it ain't forever. I mean, if you have a panic attack, Justice, here's a personal question. Have you ever had a panic attack?
I don't think so, but I feel almost positive that I've been like on the verge several times.
Yeah.
Like I've at least held the amount of adrenaline that might be in a panic attack while not actually being in a panic attack.
Okay, great. So I have talked a lot of people off the ledge of a panic attack. Tons of them. As a therapist, I've been in the room. I've sat on the floor with someone in the middle of, I've had to literally get out of my chair, get on the floor with that person and walk them through the panic attack. And I just have to keep telling them, this can only last physiologically. This can only last for about 3 to 5 minutes before it's going to pass. So I'm going to just sit here with you. And what's really scaring you right now is the physical experience of anxiety. It's not actually the source of the anxiety. It's just the feeling of it. And if you can get distance from the feeling and look at it as though it's so in other words, to say to yourself, I am not the problem right here. The problem is the problem. And the problem is the feeling of fear that I'm having. And if I can get some distance from it and observe the fear and have compassion for the fear, it's actually eventually going to evaporate like a cloud and move on. And everything is going to get clear and okay. Anthony, what do you want to say to close us out?
Yes, I'd love to say that, because we don't get a chance to, or I don't get a chance in this context to say this, but I just can't imagine having a family and having children and not having the tool of the Enneagram. I mean, it's been so helpful to understand and distinguish the needs of my children, to go, beyond the personality or the actions to meet the needs. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to really encourage all of our listeners to think of, the Enneagram as a tool broader than just finding yourself or finding integration for yourself, but to really maximize it as a tool for your relationships and particularly with your family.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, thank you so much. This has been an awesome interview. I want to close with just a few things I want everybody to know about. Number one, I want everybody to know right now that I've been doing some work around the age at which the Enneagram can start to become a helpful tool with young people. And I want you to know that when you're working in psychology, spirituality, things like that, that your decisions being a bunch of Enneagram teachers that actually take a counterpoint view of this thing. I was taught early on that it was not a good idea, and in fact, it was a dangerous idea to try and type children before the age of, let's say, 17, 18, something like that. I'm actually beginning to think you can do it earlier. And we'll talk about that maybe on a different episode. I want also you folks to know a couple things. A lot of you don't know your type. One resource you can go to is my test, the IEQ-9. You can go to my website, Ian Morgan Cron, and take the IEQ-9. It gives such a robust report and will really, really help you. And after you take it, I want you to make sure that you go to someone who really knows the Enneagram to help you verify the result. Secondly, we've got a whole new series out on YouTube called Enneagram and Stress. We released it on Instagram and other platforms, but it's up on YouTube in case you missed it. It was a huge hit. We had hundreds of thousands of listens, and we're really excited about this new thing called YouTube for the typology. That brings me to my next point, which is it would be so helpful if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Lots of you came over from Instagram to listen, but you're going to be able to get stuff off our channel that you're not going to be able to get off if you listen to it just on other platforms. So just take 5 seconds, go over to YouTube, punch in my name, up will come my channel, subscribe. We are, by the way, starting on April 27th, we are dropping a 9-part series called Enneagram and Parenting. These are going to be 5 or 6 minute episodes only. I've learned from my audience to stop them being 10 minutes and go 5 or 6. So these are going to be 5 or 6 minute episodes giving parents tips about how to parent in their type. Okay. We are also thinking in May that we're going to have a webinar-based program where I take an hour and a half to 2 hours to talk about just one type, to do a deep dive into one type. What would be very helpful to me is if you would like to be part of that, I want you to tell me what components or questions you would want answered about your type. And you can do that by emailing, I guess, or what do you think, Anthony?
Yes, email would be the best.
How do they get to my email?
Let's just do Wendy@ianmorgancron.com.
Wendy, Wendy, right, at ianmorgancron.com. Also, finally, check out my course, Enneagram Made Simple. If you go to my website, there's a red button in the corner. Enneagram Made Simple is like a 6-hour overview of the Enneagram. It has a component about business. So for business people that want to use self-development money or personal development money, you're able to tap into that because there's a lot about business. But it's not just about business, it's about the Enneagram in general. So please check that out. Anthony, Justice, thank you so much. And in the words of the great Oscar Wilde, everybody be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. See you next time.